Hey guys, how's it going? Fluent here. Today, as you see, I'm redoing my MCU tier list. A few weeks ago, I started rewatching the MCU movies to see if I feel any differently. I love the MCU films. I think Disney has done a phenomenal job with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially with the Infinity Saga, which is phenomenal. Great storyline. So keep in mind, this is my opinion. I understand that we're not going to agree on everything. If you see a movie that was put in a tier that you think should have been higher or lower, please let me know in the comments down below, or tell me your tier in the comments below. And also, before I do this, I am also watching The Walking Dead, so soon I will be doing a tier list for The Walking Dead seasons from seasons 1 to 10. So, to get into this tier list, we got Captain Marvel. This movie to me is decent. It's in the middle of the road. There are some good moments about it, and then there are some horrible moments about it. And this is probably the sloggiest, like the slowest MCU movie to get through to me. It's slow as hell to get through. Like, I just wanted to go ahead and move on to the next movie in the MCU, which would have been Endgame. I just wanted to move on. I wanted to be done with this. But I mean, I can't deny there are some good elements. The CGI is great. The fight scenes are awesome. The soundtrack, since it's based in the '90s, is awesome, and an awesome Stan Lee cameo really holds this movie up from being D tier. But the acting to me, especially from Brie Larson, just is kind of wooden and static. Like she didn't care about what she was doing in the role. Just feels like she's on autopilot in the movie. It doesn't feel like she really cares, and that can be said about most of the actors. The only actor I could say that really did a phenomenal job is Samuel L. Jackson. He did a phenomenal job in the movie. So it's just a mediocre MCU movie, in my opinion. To me, this is my least favorite MCU movie out of Phase 3. Avengers Endgame. I'm putting this in S tier. This is a great way. This was a fantastic way to end the Infinity Saga. It was beautiful. They wrapped it up nicely. It was a fun movie to watch. A bit long, I will admit, but it's still a fun movie. I went to theaters with my friend to watch this movie. Me and him had a blast because me and him we watched the MCU movies like since we were in high school, and to see it close the way it did with the beautiful sacrifice of Iron Man and you know Captain America trading it all the way to actually live his life. It was a very beautiful way to end certain characters' storylines and open up storylines for other characters. It was really well done. I know there's plot holes in the movie, but to me personally, this is one of my favorites out the Phase 3 Infinity Saga, and it's probably one of my favorite MCU movies because it did a lot to beautifully close out the MCU Infinity Saga. So, to me, I love the movie. Thor: The Dark World. I still do not care about this movie. I still do not care. Thor: The Dark World, I do not even remember the villains. I remember nothing except for a Captain America gag. The movie was bland, boring. It just fell off, and it's to me this is the hardest movie to get throughout the entirety of the MCU. It's the hardest. I do not like watching this movie. It's even harder to go through than the Hulk. Okay, than the Hulk. But I mean, like I said, there are some funny moments in it. Chris Hemsworth and all the actors, they'd still do a fantastic job. It's just the story that really hinders this movie from being up there at the top. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. Well, it's not one of my favorite MCU movies, but it's just a bland, boring mess to me. Doctor Strange. I'm going to put this in S tier. This is probably the most visually impressive Phase 3 movie and probably the most visually impressive MCU movie of all time. Ayogu's great work of CGI. It had great fight scenes, a great story. Benedict Cumberbatch doing a fantastic job as Doctor Strange. Really well done. Just to me, a big shocker. I wasn't really expecting much for Doctor Strange, but going into it and watching it in theaters, it was a very enjoyable experience. And it, just like Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, became a huge surprise for me. And I cannot wait to see the sequel done by Sam Raimi. I just cannot wait. Thor Ragnarok. S tier. You guys know this is my favorite MCU movie, directed by Taika Waititi. This movie is just hilarious. It's the best Thor movie. And I'm so glad Taika Waititi's coming back to do the sequel. Um, he just let his actors do what they wanted. They gave him like a small script so they work off this, and they basically just improvise most of the lines. Like most of this movie is improv, which is impressive. And how they're able to do that and keep the story going very cohesively was phenomenal. I love the villains of Ragnarok. I love Hela. I thought she was a really good villain. I love Jeff Goldblum's character because Jeff Goldblum, he's awesome in the movie. And to me, I think the entire like all the jokes to me land. It's just hilarious. This is a non-stop comedy. This is a comedy. It's more comedy than action at times. But I love what they did with the characters. I love what they did with Thor's character, and it's just badass. The first Guardians of the Galaxy, I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off. I'm putting this in A tier. Listen, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, I love the movies. But I can't deny that the villain really hinders this movie from being an S tier. I think Ronan was a weak villain. He wasn't at all intriguing. I think they could have done better with his character. It's cool that we got to see, Thanos in the movie and all that. And, yes, the movie is very well directed and very well written because it's James Gunn. But Ronan just really hinders it. He's such a bland villain. He's not interesting. You just don't care when you see him on screen. You just want him to kind of go away. Um, Other than that, I love the movie. I don't think it should be up there with like Endgame, Doctor Strange, or Thor Ragnarok, but I still love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a very close S tier. It's like a high A, low S tier situation. The Incredible Hulk. I do not care. I do not consider this part of the MCU. I do not care for this movie at all. It's boring and it's not interesting. And I can't watch this movie thinking, wow, he went from being Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo. And the same can be said with Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, where he plays Terrence Howard with Don Cheadle. But with that, they actually, I don't know, I like Don Cheadle as an actor. I don't know what it is, but I just can't go back to rewatch Incredible Hulk. It just feels like a very different movie to me. And there's a reason why I don't own it physically, because I don't want it on my shelf. I own every single other MCU movie besides The Incredible Hulk. While The Incredible Hulk is still an awesome movie, well, not an awesome movie, it's bland. There are good moments in it. The CGI is pretty good. Edward Norton, of course, is a great actor. He's always been a great actor. But that's about it. Everything else to me is just kind of meh. Like, I don't care. So I usually tend to skip it on my MCU reviewings, but I sat and rewatched it to see if I feel any differently, and I don't. Shane Black's Iron Man 3. This is the Iron Man movie that wasn't directed by Jon Favreau. And honestly, I'm going to put it in A tier with Guardians of the Galaxy. I actually like this movie. I think they did a phenomenal job. I think Shane Black did a great job with this movie. For one thing, this is more of a Tony Stark movie than an Iron Man movie, which I think is great. I like that they did that. That's awesome. This feels very personal, like a very personal story for Tony Stark. The villain, they do pull a twist that no one's happy about. I didn't mind the twist. I thought the twist was pretty funny. Like, I'm a big fan of the comics, and I was very excited to see that character on the screen. But I didn't mind the twist as much as other people did. I guess I'm like weird that way. I guess I just don't mind what they did with it. So maybe that's just me. But the only thing I will say is that the other villain in this movie, kind of forgettable, very bland, just meh, just a big meh. But other than that, Shane Black did a phenomenal job with Iron Man 3, did a great job, and it's my second favorite out the Iron Man trilogy. Speaking of Iron Man 2. I'm going to put this in C tier. I'm going to be very lenient. Before, I think I put this in my high tier. That's changing. I recently rewatched it, and it was kind of painful to get it through. I wouldn't say it's as painful as like Captain Marvel. I mean, there's a lot more good stuff in this than in Captain Marvel. But for one thing, I just don't care for Whiplash. I don't care for him as a villain in this movie. I don't. I just don't care for the villain. I don't care for some of the writing. Like some of the writing just feels weak as hell. The directing by Jon Favreau, of course, is good. He's known for directing really good. You know, he did Mandalorian, which was awesome. He did First Iron Man, which was awesome. He is a good director, and I don't know. It's just this one just feels like it was a big step down from the very first Iron Man, which is a phenomenal film. It just feels like a big ass step down, and it's not bad. I wouldn't put it on the like quality of like D tier, but you know, it's a movie that's kind of painful to get through nowadays. The first Iron Man, the movie that started it all, it's going in a S tier. It's the first Iron Man. I mean, the movie is still great. It still holds up. This movie is phenomenal. It's easily, to me, Jon Favreau's best work. It's, you know, he did perfect casting with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark slash, you know, Iron Man. You know, Robert Downey Jr. was born to play this role. Same with Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. I just love the first Iron Man. Like, I can always go back to rewatch this movie. It's a legendary. It started it all, and it's just a phenomenal film. Easily one of the MCU's best. Avengers Infinity War, that's also going in S tier, a lot of S tiers. Infinity War was a fucking dark movie. And they really did a good job combining every single character from the MCU thus far, except for Ant-Man. Ant-Man wasn't in this one. He was eventually in Endgame. Though everyone teaming up to try to take down Thanos, and I fucking love Infinity War. This is probably my favorite Avengers movie, with Endgame being my second. It's a beautifully shot film with great special effects, great CGI, a dark as fuck plot, and really cool team ups. Like we finally got to see Thor team up with Guardians of the Galaxy, which never thought I needed, but once I got it, I cannot wait to see the crossover movie that I think they're planning on doing. Just really good performances all around from everyone involved in the movie, especially from Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Just a really phenomenal Avengers movie. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Sorry, Jay Fighter. Spider-Man: Far From Home is going in S tier. This is my favorite Spider-Man film ever made. I love it. It's awesome. I love the villain Mysterio in it. I love the CGI that goes in the movie. I will always consider Tom Holland the best Peter Parker slash Spider-Man in the Spider-Man film history. I love the plot of this movie. I love the message they were trying to convey. I love the locations. I love the fight scenes. It's just, to me, this was another great way. You know, well, not really. I wish they would have saved this for Phase 4 instead of waiting for, you know, because Endgame to me was a great way to end the Infinity Saga. I don't think, you know, this should have been the closer, because I think Endgame should have been that big closer. But nevertheless, I'm so glad we did get this movie. It was a great Spider-Man film. I love it. And I'm sorry, Jay Fighter, but I love Far From Home. Homecoming, another one is going in. Again, I love the MCU films. This one's going in S tier as well. Homecoming is a phenomenal Spider-Man movie, my second favorite Spider-Man film of all time. Had a great villain in The Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, who does a really good job portraying a villain in this movie, and he's very sympathetic. You understand why he's doing what he's doing. I love that, you know, this one like tries to focus on Peter trying to, you know, establish himself as more than a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He wants to become something bigger, while also trying to win over the heart of MJ, which is pretty cool. So I like Far From Home. I really love it. It's my second favorite Spider-Man film, and you know, these are the Spider-Man films I go back to rewatch all the time. Thor. So I'm gonna put this in C tier. I'm not gonna put it in D tier because it doesn't deserve D tier. While this movie is still kind of blandish, I do enjoy this more than Thor: The Dark World. I just don't care for the choices they made in this movie, such as Dutch angle, and more Dutch angle, a lot more Dutch angle, and a very gray color palette. This movie just feels washed out. I don't know what it is. There's some good humorous bits in the movie, But other than that, I mean, it's just eh. I mean, I can watch it, but I won't enjoy myself at all watching it. So it goes in C tier. The Winter Soldier. People consider this one of the best MCU movies, and I agree. The Winter Soldier is a phenomenal Captain America movie with really good action. It really good writing, really good directing, great fucking story, great story in the movie, a great fucking villain as well. The Winter Soldier is badass as hell, and of course, Chris Evans steals the show, and we get the introduction of the Falcon in this movie, which is also a great addition, played by Anthony Mackie. Really good MCU film, amazing. Um, I love it. As you tell, there's a lot more in S tier than what there was before. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is another S tier. I'm sorry, Altex, I know you hate this movie. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it used to go in A tier, but the more I rewatch this movie, the more I start to fall in love with it. I get that this is more of a Star-Lord movie than a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but I think that, the moments that do have the Guardians in it are really well done, especially Yondu and Rocket, who eventually bond in the film, which is really awesome. And to me, this has one of the most emotional endings in the MCU, with a certain character. Won't spoil it. If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Really good acting all around from the cast members. Really good directing and writing from James Gunn. And to me, I think this one is superior to the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's just my opinion. I also the villain Ego. That's like one of my favorite villains in the MCU. Really well done. Captain America First Avenger. I'm gonna put this in A tier. The only reason why there's two reasons why I'm putting this in A tier. For one, the villain Red Skull. It's like they didn't use him that much. He was big wasted potential. I love Red Skull. It isn't as bad as what they did to Black Mask and Birds of Prey, but big but. First Avenger is still a great MCU film. I just wish they would have done more with Red Skull, and also I wish they would have done a scene, like an extended scene where he was in World War II fighting the battle, and you got to see him fight the battle and stuff. I would have loved to see that, but we don't get that, and it's kind of a shame because I would have loved to see it. So, other than that, it's a really great MCU movie. I don't think it's up there with the S tiers, but it's still a great film. Avengers Age of Ultron, first movie going to B tier. I think that this is my least favorite out of the Avengers films. It's it's just meh. Like, I mean, it's better than the C tier movies. I think they should have separated this movie up into two movies because we needed like more time with Ultron than what we got. Like Ultron was barely like he was used, but he wasn't used to his like fullest potential. The story felt kind of weak in terms of the Avengers. This is probably the weakest story out of the entirety of the Avengers movies. It just feels kind of like this movie's just on autopilot for some reason. There are great moments in the movie. The fights are awesome. The comedy's great. The dynamic with all the heroes is awesome. There's just some things that I wish they would have done differently and maybe split the movie up in two movies to let us get to know Ultron. Do what they did with Infinity War and Endgame. They're part of the same. It's based on two villains. Why couldn't we get that with Ultron? Because I think if we would have gotten two movies with Ultron, it probably would have been better received. Because this just feels like it was rushed. Like they had to get everything in this movie at once. While it's still good, you can tell they were trying to jam as much into it as possible, and that kind of hindered the film from being in A or S tier for me. Ant-Man, the first one, is going in A tier. I love the first Ant-Man. It was written by Edgar Wright. Unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to direct it because he had very different opinions in Disney. He wanted to do something differently, creatively, and they wouldn't allow him to do it. So he left and they got someone new. Now, the director of the movie who did it now, he does a fine job. I wish they would have still kept Edgar Wright because, I love Edgar Wright as a director. He's a phenomenal director. I love his films, including the Cornetto trilogy, and Baby Driver is awesome. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is great. He's a really good director. But his script, you can tell this is an Edgar Wright script. It has his type of humor in it. As for the movie itself goes, I think this is a very great MCU film. It was a big surprise when I went to go see it. The only issue I have is the villain. He's very generic and bland. Like, he's the typical villain. There's nothing unique or special about him, which kind of sucks. I wish they would have done something more bigger for this movie in terms of the villain, but they didn't. It just feels kind of bland and generic and just there. Other than that, this is a great MCU film. I love all the CGI, the fight scenes, the story was pretty cool, and the fact that they introduced a new Ant-Man instead of the original Ant-Man is a pretty cool way to do it. Especially them getting Michael Douglas to play the original Ant-Man. It's pretty fucking cool. Black Panther. So I'll put this in A tier. I think Black Panther, while yes, it's nowhere near, I don't think it's nowhere near the quality of the S tier films. Black Panther to me is still a really great MCU film. It had a great story, great character developments, great acting, great writing, a great villain, a fantastic villain in Killmonger. I think Killmonger is easily one of the best MCU villains of all time. But the third act really hinders this movie. If you've seen this movie, you know what I mean. The CGI in the third act is appalling. It's abysmal. You look at the CGI throughout most of the movie, it's pretty good. It could have been better, but it was still pretty good. It's passable. But Jesus Christ, the third act looked like a PS2 game. It was that bad. The fight scene between Killmonger and Black Panther is really cool. I love the dialogue. I love the ending to it. The movie is great. I just don't think it deserved the Oscar nomination that it got or as much praise as it gets. I would say this is easy like an 80 to an 85 out of 100. I wouldn't nowhere give it like a 90, 95, or a 100 out of 100. Okay, so Ant-Man the Wasp. The more we watch this, I get now what people are saying. While I don't hate the movie as much as other people do, I think it's not as good as the first one. I think Ant-Man the Wasp is kind of a step down in terms of it. For one thing, the writing doesn't feel as clever as the first Ant-Man. That's because Edgar Wright didn't write it. You really feel his absence. With the first Ant-Man, the jokes were clever, they were funny, that's because it had the Edgar Wright style of humor. This one just felt like they were trying to throw everything at the wall and see what stuck. And not to mention, they threw so many characters in this movie. Like, oh my god. Like, what was the point of Walter Goggins' character? What was the point of his character? He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. In the movie, you could remove him. Nothing changes. Ghost is a good villain. She's very sympathetic. The Lawrence Fishburne character, decent villain. Don't like him as much as I like Ghost in the movie. But still, he's decent. Walter Goggins doesn't need to be there. But just like any MCU film, the movie looks great. The fight scenes look cool. The story is decent. I wouldn't say it's the best. Again, that's because of the weak writing in this movie. And the acting is great. I still do think Paul Rudd's a fantastic Ant-Man. I can't wait to see the third film. I hope to God it's more like the first movie. But it's still a really fun movie, and the end credit scene has always stuck with me. Well, the after credit scene has always stuck with me to this day. Alright, the first Avengers is going up here with the other two Avengers movies. This is my third favorite Avengers movie of all time. Great villain in Loki, great writing. You guys know this is the first Avengers. It's a fucking badass movie. It showed that this time that Disney didn't own them, Paramount knew what they were doing. Unfortunately, the first Disney-owned Avengers movie was Ultron, but then they got better with Infinity War and Endgame. But, Avengers, the first one, really fucking phenomenal movie, and it put these movies more on the map. I would honestly say Ant-Man did, but I see why people say that, Avengers did it more. The Avengers is a phenomenal film. I love it. It's a great MCU movie, and it's the one that I enjoy rewatching. Last but not least, we got Captain America Civil War. I love this movie. I don't get all the criticism it gets with the airport scene. I think the airport scene is badass. I think the story is awesome. I think the villain is criminally underrated. He didn't have to, fight the heroes himself. He made them turn on each other. He used his brain more than brawn. And that's awesome. And the end fight scene between Bucky, Captain America, and Iron Man was just really fucking well done. Really well done. I love Civil War. It's in my top 10 MCU films of all time. And this is my tier list. So in S tier, we got Endgame, Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Iron Man, Avengers, Infinity War, Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Avengers and Civil War. A tier, we got Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man 3, First Avenger, Ant-Man and Black Panther. B tier, we got Age of Ultron and Ant-Man and the Wasp. C tier, we got Captain Marvel, Iron Man 2, Thor, and D tier, we got Thor Dark World, Incredible Hulk. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Stay tuned, probably in the next few days, or maybe even a week, for my Walking Dead season review, where it's probably going to be even longer because I got to go over a lot of the plot points of the show. If you haven't watched the show, you don't want to get spoiled, I probably would suggest watching that video. I won't put spoilers in the title of it because I've been going over some spoilers about the show. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I love the MCU films. You can see here I have a lot in S tier. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.